Somewhere ahead of them, deep inside the blinding heat, there was a trading post, and if he reached it, everything would be all right again. He would not die. He would continue to search for his insects, to look for a damned fly that no one had ever seen before, which he would name after himself, Musca bengleriensis. He couldn't give up now. He had invested everything in this hunt for an unknown fly. So he struggled onward, and the sand and the sun sliced through his mind like knives. 2 years earlier he had been sitting in his student room in Prästgården in Lund, and listening to the sound of horses' hooves clattering on the cobblestones outside as he studied an incomplete German map of the Kalahari Desert. He traced his finger along the coastline of German southwest Africa, north to the border of Angola, south to the land of the Boers, and then inland towards the centre of southern Africa, which had no name. He was 27 years old then, in 1874, and he had already given up all hope of completing his university studies and passing his exams. When he first came to Lund from the cathedral school in Växjö, he had thought of becoming a physician, but he fainted and fell like a heavy tree on his first visit to the anatomy theatre. The lecturer, Professor Enander, had clearly explained before the doors were opened that they were going to dissect a homeless, unmarried woman who had drunk herself to death at a brothel in Copenhagen and been transported back to Sweden in a pine box. She was a Mamsell Andersson from Kivik, who had fallen into the sinful life and delivered an illegitimate child at the age of 15. She had sought happiness in Copenhagen, where there was nothing to be found but misfortune. He could still hear the almost salacious contempt dripping from Professor Enander's introductory words. "We shall be cutting up a cadaver that was already a cadaver even in life. A whore's cadaver from Österlen." Then they had entered the anatomy theatre en masse, 7 medical students, all men, all equally pale, and Professor Enander had begun to slice open her abdomen. That's when he fainted. He struck his head on one of the hard steel edges of the dissection table. He still had the scar just above his right eye. After that he had abandoned all thought of a medical career. He considered joining the army, but could envision nothing but a meaningless ritual of marching and screaming young men. He had dabbled in philosophy and thought about becoming a pastor when he sat drinking with his friends, but there was no God, and finally he wound up among the insects. He could still recall that morning in early summer. He woke with a start as if something had bitten him, and when he threw open the window, the stench from the street below made him sick. As if aware of sudden danger, he quickly threw on his clothes, grabbed his walking stick, and strode out of town to the south, towards Staffanstorp. Somewhere along the road he grew weary and stepped into the bushes to rest and perhaps masturbate in the shade of a tree. And as he lay there, a gaudy-coloured butterfly settled on his hand. It was a brimstone butterfly, but it was something else as well. The play of colours kept shifting on its wings as they slowly opened and closed. The rays of sunshine falling through the foliage transformed the yellow to red, to blue, and back to yellow. The butterfly sat on his hand for a long time, as if it had an important message for him, and then, as it suddenly took flight and vanished, he knew. Insects. The world was full of insects which didn't have names and had not been catalogued. Insects that were waiting for him, waiting to be sorted, described, and classified. He had returned to Lund, sought admission to the botany department, and although he was already a senior student, the professor was kind and accepted him. During the summer, he visited his home in Småland, where his father lived as a man of independent means on the family estate outside Hofmantorp. His mother had died when he was 15. His 2 sisters were older, and since they were both married and lived abroad in Berlin and Verona, only his father was there with the old housekeeper. The house was decaying.